pops. Yep. All right, everybody. It's Mr. Smith again. The American Mixtape is our class for American Lit, Topics in American Lit Spring 2022 at Tennessee Tech. And we have a very, very special guest. Even though I don't think she fully matriculated, I think she counts as an alumnus because she went here. She doesn't go here anymore, but she went here. And I hate to do math. I very much resent math, but Erin, but it was 14 years ago this coming August that you showed up in Mark and I's Learning Village where we did the play, and we made a play, and it was a fused section of Intro to Theater and Intro to Writing. So I want you to tell them the story of how you got. So everybody, Erin Rae is our guest today. She has a brand new album out that just came out a couple days ago called Lighten Up. She's a Nashville-based songwriter, singer, and recording artist. And in the last probably 5 years, she's completely blown up in the Americana alternative country scene. And she sings a pop country Americana hybrid that is all her own. And I only recently saw her in person at the Dawes concert at the Ryman that happened to be on my birthday. And she opened up and we hung out at the merch table. And I was all awkward fanboy, and she made me feel totally comfortable. and that made me reach out to her to visit our class, because we've been talking, Erin, to a lot of professional music critics and authors. You might remember Sean Maloney used to write for the Nashville Scene. He's an old pal of mine. He was on the call last week. So let's begin by telling just a little bit of your autobiography. But how about the part of your autobiography when you were an 18-year-old Tennessee Tech student, and how you made the decision to leave us in Cookeville and move to Nashville to pursue your dreams, and how you found your calling, and just a little bit about what that journey looked like in the early days, in the before times, before all this pandemic, and before you became kind of Nashville famous. You might not be globally famous.
Yeah,
you're pretty Nashville famous. Your mural, the mural depicting your wonderfulness, is on the side of Grimey's, which if my students, I don't know if I've bragged on Grimey's to them, as a record store here in Nashville that is very supportive of the local music community and supported by the local community. Some famous rock star, I forget which one it was it Taylor Swift or somebody, paid all the employees during the early days of the pandemic, literally just wrote Doyle a check. It was awesome. Okay, I'm talking too much. I always talk too much. They know that. You probably remember that about me. So everyone, welcome to the call, Nashville songwriter and Tennessee Tech alumnus, Erin Rae.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you for doing that math. It was like 2008, I guess. It was the fall of 2008, which is wild. That was the year there was a big election that year. Let's see. I'm from Nashville, and I went to Tennessee Tech immediately after high school with a couple of my good friends, mainly my good friend Maria. And I loved being there, and I loved Tennessee Tech, and I loved Andrew's class, Mr. Smith's class. Basically what happened was I was gifted an acoustic guitar for my high school graduation. My dad gave me one. And my parents had played music growing up, and so that was like always part of our lives. But there was like a couple of hippie kids from Murfreesboro that hung out on the stoop in the quad, or I guess the dorm. I can't remember which dorm I was in, but there's four of them, rectangle. And so they were playing like Bob Dylan songs in the little grass area. So I kind of gravitated towards them. And, at that time I was just really learning to play the guitar a little bit. And, but yeah, I think, I found my people with them, and then also just had a lot of fun at Tennessee Tech. But I also wasn't very clear on what it was I like wanted to do academically. I kind of thought I would be maybe pursuing like a psychology degree and be a therapist. My mom's a therapist. But so I went home for winter break that semester, that winter, back to Nashville, and started going to an open mic, and kind of, I think it was just sort of like the magic of being around like 50 other people that were getting up to sing songs that they wrote. And I saw a couple of friends from high school that I hadn't known while I was in school, but they were like the cool kids. And you know, we all just like hung out really late until like 3 a.m. And so played music. So yeah, I made the difficult decision to like pause school, and I thought I was just going to pause it for a year. And what ended up happening was that I just, I kind of didn't really have a clear plan. I was just like, I feel more at peace. I feel at peace with all these other like musician weirdos. And, I don't know, this is making me really happy right now. I want to pursue music. And so that's what I told my parents, and they're like, kind of, follow your bliss, like kind of hippie. My dad's a musician, and but they never played music professionally. So they were very encouraging of that, that path for me, I guess, even though it was like kind of bizarrely early on. Like it might have been nice for me to like continue on school while I learned to play guitar, but instead of just like, there's a little bit of like fantasy in there, a little daydream aspect. But I feel like that's part of what's needed for like a creative life sometimes. Is, there was a couple of years ago, I came across this quote that was like, I don't know where it was, but it was like, you can build a castle in the clouds, but you need to, build the foundation underneath to kind of hold it up. And so that's like where I've been the last few years, is kind of, solidifying the foundation, I guess, of this strange career. But yeah, and I think, part of what was part of what gave me the kind of internal permission to pursue a career like this is supportive people who were supportive of my early creative efforts, like Mr. Smith. Not just saying that. Like, I just remember we wrote memoirs that semester, and my grammar was terrible, but you gave me a good grade because you were like, you just said some very complimentary things about like my writing, my kind of like just natural inclination to what I was getting at, and I didn't have like the the like internal discipline to be like, well, I want it to be perfect. I was just like, yes, okay, cool. Mr. Smith likes my stuff. But it's that kind of encouragement to like the raw, like initial creative attempts that I feel like have been so crucial to my path as an artist. So yeah, that's the long-winded question, or long-winded answer to that.
Right, but a lot of people at that sort of, and I think you lived on I think you're describing the quad along 7th Street, the older residence halls. I worked out of the newer, when we had learning villages. We don't have them anymore, but we were working out at Newhall South, I think that semester. But then Newhall North, I moved over to Newhall North, and now I work back. I'm at my house right now. You know that. You see my St. Jerry Garcia and St. Martin Luther King Jr. behind me. So, but I was, so I'm imagining they've remodeled it a little bit. But if you lived on the 7th Street there, class in the old dorms there, they use a pejorative. I don't like even saying that word, but they use a negative connotative word to describe that quadrangle there. But I can imagine 14 years ago, some quote hippie guys and gals sitting around strumming guitars. So in that subculture, and I remember that subculture from when I was an undergrad, up in Ohio and Michigan. But the tendency would be, to play, Bob Dylan, Pete Seeger, Cat Stevens, Grateful Dead, maybe even Nirvana, but it would be to play cover songs. But you immediately gravitated towards songwriting, yourself, and making up your own songs. And so And so this is a two-part question, and this can take up a lot of our time this morning, because our time is going to fly by the way. But I'm really curious, because their job this semester is going to be to analyze an album and also to make a mixtape, and they're going to be looking at that relationship between the song and the words of the song, the lyrics, the poetry of the song. And I'd be curious how you found your process and how you found your muse. I mean, like on Lighten Up, I mean, is there anything that's not credited to you? I mean, I haven't pulled out the sleeve, you know, to double check, but aren't most of your songs your songs? I mean, you are a singer-songwriter, right? Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So why don't you talk to us about that process of melody and lyrics, and just like making a song, and then let's get into like, how do you, like, because I've got in the other, I apologize, I said I was going to go by Lighten Up, and I haven't picked it up yet, but I still have the copy of Putting on Airs that I bought from you at the Ryman with your Sharpie signature on it, you know, on display in one of my album rooms. And I have so many albums, it takes up many rooms in my house.
That's amazing.
But how do we get from, okay, I'm an 18-year-old college student who is just gifted an acoustic guitar, to now I have like an album? So walk us through like making a song and making an album, and take as long as you want with this one.
Okay. Well, I think part of it is just, you know, having listened to a lot of music growing up, and my parents played music, and my dad wrote a handful of songs. Like he worked at Vanderbilt, when we moved here to Nashville, and kind of just always worked jobs to support the family, but, you know, just kind of a natural storyteller. And so the music that he exposed me to sort of showed me like what a songwriting structure could be like, you know, the arc of it. And yeah, it's something that I have other friends that are very much more coming at it from the craft side of it. My good friend Caroline Spence, her music is really beautiful. Highly recommend checking her out. But she's like, she's done a lot of co-writing in Nashville, which is where you pair up to, you know, with other writers and kind of come up with something that's a big country music writing model. A lot of the like popular songs are written by a couple of people at least. And that for me, I've enjoyed doing that with friends that I already kind of feel comfortable with, but my writing process has been much more personal and kind of like an extension of like processing something emotionally, which is, you know, what kind of why my songs tend to have like a heavier subject matter, even though they don't feel that way to me. Actually, I'm just kind of like, you know, processing through what's going on, or in past tense at that point. But yeah, I think I feel like I'm not a writer that can speak to like how to impeccably craft like the perfect song. You know, it's like I kind of am following this like intuition sort of thing. Like I really struggle to write a bridge to a song, which is like you have like, you know, the chorus is the part that repeats, the verse is in between, and then the bridge is like where it kind of changes, and like maybe, you know, the melody changes, the chords change, and there's kind of a lift and takes you to a different place and then brings you back to the chorus. And I just really don't write very many bridges in my songs. Kind of probably for that reason, just like it hasn't felt necessary for the emotional, like, I don't know, the emotional arc of what I'm writing about. And I don't know, you can tell me if
words first or melody first. And I want to know, do the words show up in your head first and then you have to find a piece of paper, or do the words come in the act of, like, so I write poetry, you know, I'm a poet. So sometimes the poem lands in my head while I'm walking, and I have to run home and see if I can remember it. And of course I forget a lot of my best poems, because by the time I get to the pen, I've already forgotten what I was imagining. Yes. But so a lot of times they show up in my head first, but then sometimes I just make myself write. Sometimes I'm just like, I need to write today. I give myself a prompt, and then it happens on the page. And so
Yes.
does it happen to you on the page first, in your head first, or does it happen like while you're strumming? Do you like freestyle it like that? Like, so
Yeah.
give us an actual, why don't you pick one of your recent numbers on the new album and tell us how that baby got born?
Love it. Thank you for, I was like getting out there. I think what usually happens is like, I'll get an idea for like a line will pop into my head and I'll be singing it for a couple of days. And then I'll finally sit down with the guitar, start strumming. And I think there's something kind of like, so, I don't know, there's a connection to like mind body stuff. It's kind of like going for a walk when you're like talking with someone. It kind of allows other things to come up in the conversation, or it just, to me, it's like, it's helpful to have like, maybe it's just kind of connects me, it grounds me into the moment or whatever. But yeah, so I'll have an idea and then start strumming the guitar, start trying to like find different chords, and then just start singing. And it's mostly like singing from just like finding what feels good as far as like melody, for that, what I'm trying to, it's pretty just like a natural thing.
And does that take like a day, a week, like an hour?
First verse and chorus, I feel like usually take almost no time at all. They're just like, okay, there it is. And then it can take a longer time to come up with like the other two verses, or just like kind of to wrap it up.
Do you contemplate like its meaning and reception? Do you think like, like, so this current album that you just put out, does it have like a, are the songs like just the collection chronologically of the last 2 years, or are they like really like, do they talk to each other intertextually? Like
they definitely do.
Yeah. So tell us, come on, let's just take that minute and like pretend we're just typing this album. So like, tell us like, what is Lighten Up exactly about?
Lighten Up is kind of the story arc of like coming through an experience of healing, I guess, and internal just like self-acceptance and realization. It's kind of like the turning point from like bringing a lot of things to light that needed attention, whether it was like patterns of relationships and how just how relationships had been messy, and then also kind of moving into this like acceptance part of like, okay, like I see my humanness, I see that I am imperfect, and like there's always more to learn, and I'm never going to get it exactly right. And so it's kind of like Lighten Up is like a message to me, and it's kind of like this decision to be like, okay, deep breath, like I'm gonna take that knowledge about what I've learned so far in this human life, and accept that it's been imperfect, but also move forward, hopefully, into a new chapter where I'm a lot gentler on myself, and I also just want to step into a more expansive life that's not not limited by fear or old beliefs. And so some of the songs are kind of telling the story of the before times, like the not pandemic wise, but just before this moment of healing, this moment of reckoning, kind of telling the story of some of the relationships or how I acted, or and then some of them are like right on that turning point, which there's one song called Cosmic Sigh, and it's kind of like, and there's another song called Drift Away, and it's kind of like these moments of peace that are like, okay, cool, like I think the worst of it is behind me, and deep breath, like I can move forward. and
that title, Cosmic Sigh, I mean, that is so perfect.
Thank you.
And, you know, I feel like I was going to wait till later in the call because I have another set of questions that I think you can actually help them with their project a little bit by talking about your, you know, your conversation partners and your influences. But I want to jump right now. Why don't you, could you grab your guitar and sing Cosmic Sigh to us? Because I also feel like,
yes,
yeah, like I kind of hold out on them a lot, you know, in this class, like, you know, where like we talk about the thing, but we don't actually, sometimes I'll just play a YouTube. And hello, I'm going to upload this. So, hey, YouTube, this is the songwriter here. So she's giving us permission to put this song in the video. Don't like flag this video because this is like the real deal, like right here, Mr. YouTube algorithm copyright police. This is the songwriter herself right here.
Permission is given. I'm going to grab my guitar. It's in the case. 1 second.
Okay. All right, class, be thinking about what your questions are going to be for Erin Rae when she finishes her performance, and a couple more questions from me, and we'll kind of land that boat and stop the recording at about 40 after, like we try to do. For those of you, that was something very windy fell outside my house. For those of you who logged on late, we're having a conversation with Nashville singer-songwriter and Tennessee Tech alumnus. She didn't matriculate, but she attended, and that makes her an alumnus. Erin Rae from Nashville, Tennessee is our guest today, and she's going to sing us a song from her brand new album. Oh yeah, turn your mic back on. There you go. Yep.
Yeah, it's getting really windy out here. Yeah, this song is called Cosmic Sigh. I haven't had my coffee yet, so forgive me. A cosmic sigh she breathes. Something shifts beneath her wings. The winds of change are blowing, and heard on high what sings. I cannot believe my ears. A sudden hope is growing, but just before the old ways die, they lure, they lie, they lure, they lie. But on the way, the sun, day is dawning in the soul and warms the melancholy, and come what may, she's won. There's no need to be afraid with her illusions falling. But just before the old ways die, they lure, they lie, they lure, they lie, but not before she's changed inside and she can see. How's the sound quality coming through there?
For Google Meeting, it sounds really, really great. Just before the old ways die, they lure, they lie, but not before she's changed inside. That is poetry, class. That is song verse. This just completely popped into my head. Are you friends with Jason? I know he's kind of a big deal in town. Are you and Jason, like, do you talk and stuff?
We're friends on Twitter. I've done a couple shows with him. I'm friends with his wife. Not close friends, but yeah, I've gotten to do a couple shows. They've always been super sweet.
So do you know that Lady Gaga called Jason and Amanda? I don't know if you know the story. So, and Amanda was working on her MFA. She got a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing from Sewanee, and she had sequestered herself. I think she wrote songs. She wrote songs for her MFA in creative writing, and I think she had sequestered herself and told Jason not to interrupt for any reason. And Mercy was a baby then, and or littler than she is now, and Jason's like feeding Mercy like peanut butter or something, and Lady Gaga calls and asks him to write a song for A Star Is Born. And have you listened to that song? Maybe It's Time.
I have not listened.
Okay, because your song just totally, just for some reason, so there's something about the lyric in here, because he uses the phrase "the old ways die," and he said it's time for the old ways to die in his song.
Yeah.
So class, this is how I make a mixtape. I have this like lightning bolt. And I assume that, that Jason and Erin knew this secret. Of course, now apparently neither of them did. But then I'll segue those two songs. Like I'll put your song and his song next to each other on a mixtape because it's got that one line about the old ways dying, and then and that every song in a mixtape will then be knitted into another song that way. Okay, so tell us, who are your contemporaries and who are the people that you go back to from like when your parents were like teaching you to love music? So so they have to make pick one album out of all the albums that I've ever made, and I'm making them pick off my list, and I give them a list of about 120 records. Now they can negotiate for something to be added to the list, but I'll probably say no. But I worked really hard making this list of like the 120 greatest albums ever, and they're all American, nothing out of the United States.
Okay.
And then they also have to make this mixtape. So like, since we started here, so imagine you're back in imagine you're auditing the class with them. What's going to be on your mixtape, and what are some of the albums that you would like put in your like top 10 of like all time? And like, what are who are some of your contemporary influences? I know that's like 5 questions in one. And then we'll land this question after you answer it, and then I'll pause and let them ask you some questions.
Okay,
We're already at 30 minutes into it already. It's flying by. I'm so grateful for your time.
Thanks for having me. I guess some of my favorite records of all time. When I was a kid, the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou came out, and T-Bone Burnett was the music producer for that, and he had Gillian Welch and Dave Rawlings contribute some music to it, I think, or at least Gillian Welch was in. She was one of the sirens in that movie where they sing "Didn't Leave Nobody But the Baby" with Alison Krauss, and so that world was kind of already familiar to me. Nickel Creek, Alison Krauss, Gillian Welch, though, as far as songwriters and singers go, she has been a mainstay. Patty Griffin was another big one growing up. Just these impeccable emotional storytellers who sing so beautifully. So yeah, and then kind of Norah Jones, Feist, was into like India Ari growing up. Feist has been a main current consistent inspiration. There's a music documentary she did on the making of her album Let It Die, I believe, called Look at What the Light Did Now. And it's very, very beautiful and very insightful as to like what goes into to making a record. And then it kind of talks about, she has an art director come on and design some projections and imagery for her live performances for her shows. So it's just very inspiring. I really loved, there was a movie called Once when I was in high school. Glenn Hansard and Marketa Irglova. He's a wonderful songwriter. And that movie to me, I think was like the most, right before I started playing music on my own, it kind of showed, it was like, it's a fictionalized tale, and their success happens a lot faster than it took in real life. But it kind of showed that there is like, it's possible to like carve out a career in music. So yeah, those are some major current influences. There's an artist called T. Hardy Morris that's from Athens, Georgia, who's he's like a rock and roller songwriter that I really love currently. Remind me, okay, what else?
Well, you've just made a mixtape right there. So
Yeah.
have you? Well, I'm just kind of imagining you sitting there like watching music documentaries. Like, I mean, like you're somebody who should be in a music documentary. Maybe when they make a music documentary, the director will like find this video on YouTube and put it in there.
Yes.
So, what like do you like this class that I'm teaching right now with, you know, and I can't sing this. I can't hold a tune. I played clarinet when I was like 13. So I've always been like, I don't know if you ever watched the movie Almost Famous. I've always been the little kid in Almost Famous with my notebook. That's all. Yeah. I've always been that guy. But since I came up with the idea to do this class this way, it's completely captivated me. And I'm like, I'm all in, you know, and I don't have to think about, you know, don't tell, you know, the boss, but like I don't have to think about coming to work. Like this isn't work exactly right now that I get to Zoom with Erin Rae. It's not exactly like, oh, poor me.
Yeah.
You know, I've got to, you know, hear her sing a beautiful song and talk about her songwriting process, because this is what I truly love. So do you kind of like, are you, the way you describe your writing process, it seems to me you're one of these people where the art and the artist are the same thing. Like you are your art. Like, is this your whole life? I mean, is this like, are you like living your best life, and is this your whole life? I mean, or do you ever have a day where you're like, man, I need to get out of the grind and just like grow tomatoes or something like that?
Definitely. I think I mean, as much as it is a primary part of my personality and also like my livelihood, well, yeah, I guess it is a lot of my life. There's like, you know, I think it's been like during the pandemic, you know, having time off the road, for better or for worse, it was good to kind of just reconnect and also just not being like on and not being on social media as much. I'm back fully on social media, but you know, just kind of having, I don't know, just exploring other interests and kind of not taking myself too seriously all the time. But yeah, I think right now there's so much. I think what excites me the most about playing music is the friends in town that I've gotten to know over the years that I play music with, and that I get to see them play their music. Just, yeah, it's very inspiring. My good friend Tristan comes to mind. She is an incredible songwriter, like more kind of, she calls it jangle pop. It's like indie rock, not rock, I guess, indie, yeah, jangle pop is what she calls it. But it's like, you know, these incredible songs. Her voice is incredible. And she has made, I think, 4 or 5 records over her lifetime, is an incredible live performer. And she just opened, a couple of years ago, opened a vintage store here in Nashville. And so she's like, you know, she has a kid now and is still making music in her basement with her husband. He's a producer. And then they have this vintage store behind Grimey's record store that Mr. Smith was talking about. Yeah, so
I know that store well. I love that store.
Love it. So
I try to stay out of it because I usually come out of that store a lot poorer and with more shirts and hats and stuff.
Yes.
But I could go to my closet right now and I would remember exactly the things I've bought there. So yeah. You know, jangle pop, that term, I learned it in the 80s. I think that's the name that REM used for their one of their genres.
Cool.
Jangle pop. Where can we hear Tristan? Have you ever done a show with her?
I have done a couple of shows with her. I can put a link in the chat. Is that?
Yeah, that would be great.
Oh.
Okay. So we're going to kind of like, we're going to end the formal part of this. We've got another 10 minutes, but I'm going to pause the recording while we start, and I'm going to invite the students to start dialoguing, and they'll use the chat window. It's down in your bottom right. There's a little thing that looks like a little text message, and they'll start dropping questions and comments into there. We already got several compliments on on Cosmic Sigh. So
Thank you.
we're wrapping up another day. We've got 10 minutes to go, class. Don't log off yet, but we're wrapping up another day of the American Mixtape with Mr. Smith. And it has been an honor and a joy and a total fanboy moment for me to have my former student and Nashville's own Erin Rae on the call today. I'm just utterly thrilled for her success. I'm going to keep following you, and I'll see you, I'm sure, at a show down the road. Looking forward to it.
Me too.